Hey, it's Kirby Myers, and you're listening to Behind the Blonde. This is a podcast for anyone who's ever been in the opposite place of where they want to be. So today, we're going to talk about what happens after we make those hard, life-challenging choices, after we put the bottle down, after we leave the toxic relationship, after we walk away from whatever it was that was slowly harming us. Sometimes when we remove the coping mechanism, it doesn't automatically remove the pain. So, a year ago this past September, which was 3.5 years after I removed alcohol from my life, I had definitely grown as a woman. I could look in the mirror every night and not despise the person looking back at me. I felt really strong physically. Mentally, while I had made some strides, I noticed that the noise in my brain was getting increasingly loud. I just couldn't find stillness. I was always fixing. I was always moving, and I couldn't seem to find any moments where I just let myself have space. I was in a quiet spiral of guilt all of the time. And it was starting to really bother me because of the way that it was showing up in my life, since I felt like I was continuing to do all this work, but there was a disconnect with that feeling and the feeling that I had internally. And what that looked like for me and how that was showing up in my marriage was really bothering me because I had become obsessive. I was nagging my husband day in and day out, taking a magnifying class on all of his little behaviors, and it was not healthy. I had this insane pressure on myself, constantly running 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I didn't understand what I was missing. So I found myself in a really intense experience, one I did not have a lot of knowledge of or plan for, but I'd kind of hit a bottom post removing drinking. Now, this episode isn't about one singular healing modality. It's not about directing you into the same avenue that I went. It's about my personal experience, and I just want to share that with you. What this is about is giving ourselves the opportunity to go inward and sit with the quiet, because most often those are the places that we really start to find peace. So after this experience, which had a monumental shift on my mindset, I went and, of course, wrote some things down. And I want to share that with you today. And when I'm done with this, we're going to be joined once again by Jolie Wilson, who I've had on the podcast before. She guided me through this experience. And right now I'm going to read it to you, a little bit of a condensed version. And it was titled Life Interrupted. I'm stretched out like a starfish at the edge of the Gulf of Mexico, covered in sand, salt, and serenity. I haven't had a single fear-based thought in almost a week. No heaviness, no overwhelming noise in my brain. I smile and exhale deeply, aware that mere days ago, this vacation almost didn't happen. The near cancellation was triggered by a panic attack I had at work in the middle of the afternoon. My brain had always been loud. Quiet moments and easy dialogue are seldom regular occupants in my head. It's been over 3.5 years since I removed alcohol from my life, and that alone transformed my anxiety. But something deeper was still nagging at me. Why can't I stop obsessing? Why can't I slow down? Why can't I let go of this deep feeling of guilt? I turn 40 next year, and in addition to over 15 years of alcohol abuse, I'm also in recovery for over 20 years of reoccurring bulimia. I've often wondered why I carry so much emotional pain when there isn't one clear, deep trauma I can point to. Then, last Tuesday, after my body completely collapsed in panic, I locked the door to my boutique, drove myself home shaking, and spent hours unraveling, fighting, crying, falling apart, trying to explain to my husband what I didn't yet understand myself. I felt broken, and I couldn't make either of us understand why. 2 days later, I found myself in a private quantum healing hypnosis session, something I had minimal knowledge of or about. I truly didn't know what I was walking into. only that I had hit my breaking point. Jolie, my guide, had me prepare questions, and we talked for over an hour. She listened, took notes, held space. Then I laid down, covered in blankets, an eye mask gently placed over my face. And from there, she led me through 30 minutes of breath work, and slowly, my body began to soften. Then, the guided hypnosis session began. She asked me to visualize a dust cloud, and for several minutes, there was nothing. I remember thinking, this just is not working. But then, something happened. A single dust mite, floating. And from there, I was somewhere else. I was awake, I was aware, but I wasn't in my body. I was asked to meet my spirit guide, and it appeared as a stunningly beautiful unicorn. And without questioning, I followed. At first, I was shown moments from my childhood, carefree days near the river, running through the neighborhood I grew up on. Then I saw myself sitting on the stairs of my childhood home. I must have been 8 or 9 years old. After waking to my parents' distress and eavesdropping as they talked seriously about divorce, I sat, silent, shattered, now carrying a weight that was never mine to hold. I ended up across the street at my neighbor's house on their treadmill, running at a breakneck pace. It was unsustainable, and I breathlessly begged out loud to Jolie to stop running. I finally found the red emergency cord and jumped off. Jolie then suggested I asked out loud if I could possibly go to a different time, a different life. And then everything shifted. It was a medieval time. I followed a knight into a great hall filled with royal festivities. There was a king, bloated, sloppy, feasting on chicken thighs as he accumulated scraps of food in his thick beard and laughing as he drowned in his goblet of wine. Something about him made my body immediately tense. Back in the courtyard, there were noble children playing with wooden swords. I noticed one out-of-place, rough-spun little blonde boy running around with the others, and my heart grew warm. Then I saw her, a maiden carrying water, the help. And I knew immediately she was me, and the boy was mine. I was drawn down a corridor into a grand bedroom. The sheets were a mess, and the king appeared, his robe wide open. My body seized as my jaw throbbed with unbearable pain, and I sobbed uncontrollably as Jolie allowed my breath to slowly calm and suggested I follow my spirit guide once again. Back in the courtyard, a hooded woman played the harp, and I asked her, begged her, what to do. She looked at me in the eyes, and she said, run as fast as you can, and don't stop. So I took my boy and I ran through the forest. I held his hand while he cried in fear. I knelt down in the thick of the woods and held his face and told him, you need to trust me. You're safe now. We reached a clearing and came upon a pond with purple flowers, and on the other side, my unicorn was there waiting. Later, I was shown my son Hudson as a baby, realizing he was now also the boy in that past life. And I was rocking him vividly in his nursery. A vodka drink sat beside me, the one I always had on his nightstand at bedtime. And after a while, he looked up at me and said the same words I spoke to him in the forest. It's okay, Mama. We're safe now. You didn't hurt me, Mama. Every inch of my body trembled as I saw the vodka disappear. I gently lay my son in his crib and could feel the tension releasing from within my body. Throughout the session, whenever we encountered pain, I asked out loud for it to be free, and each time, my hand lifted and I could physically feel the letting go. Since that day, my mind has quieted down. I feel a bit calmer. I feel a bit slower. Something rewired. Call it a spiritual awakening. Call it crazy. Call it whatever you want. But I'll be calling on my unicorn from now on. I want to welcome back for the second time the human that has probably made the most monumental difference in my wellness journey. My friend, my yoga instructor, quantum healing therapist, breathwork therapist. I could go on and on. Jolie Wilson is joining me back on the show
today
I'd like give you a big old hug and pretend like you weren't sitting 2 feet away from me for that, but we all know you were. I mean that. You have made the biggest change within. I really think that for a long time, I didn't know what I was doing after I removed the alcohol. I was going through, my day, but something was still really nagging at me. I was shaking at the end of my savasana at yoga when you lay down and you do that final meditation. I was really never able to turn my brain off. And so when I mentioned that experience I just read came quickly and was not really with a lot of forethought, I had heard her discuss QHHT, but I didn't know much about it. And you actually came to me and you said, I feel like I could help you if you're open to this experience. So I don't know if you kind of recall that, but that's how this all initially came up. And I think really led to, now a year and a half later, I feel so connected to you and so inspired by you. So thanks for coming on the show again.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here and to see this journey that you've been on. To be even a witness to a part of it is really special.
If you want to tell everybody first a little bit about what quantum healing hypnosis is and how it can show up differently for everybody, because obviously
Yes.
my experience was very intense, but that's not necessarily the same experience everybody has.
Right. Everyone's experience is really unique. And something I just want to mention that came through is when we are focused too much on the past, which a lot of people are, something that's bothering us from last week, that creates depression. And when we're too focused on, I need to do this, this, and this today, and all of the things that are coming in the future, that creates anxiety. So both of those states are created by just never being taught how to live in present moment awareness. But to answer your question, quantum healing hypnosis technique is an amazing modality that fits every single person exactly where they are, regardless of their belief systems. So, not everyone goes into past life experiences. Not everyone has spirit guides show up. Really, the goal of quantum hypnosis, it's really just getting you into the theta brainwaves. And the theta brainwaves are the closest to sleep that you can be without actually falling asleep. So, once we get someone into that state, through breath and then through the guided meditation that comes first, that's where we are able to access the subconscious. It's basically getting that mind part, like you keep mentioning, like the mind, the thoughts, the overthinking. It just gets that out of the way so that the part of you that you really truly are, some people resonate with calling that the soul self. Some people have heard of the terms the higher self, but it's like pretty much most people can relate to, oh, this one time I just had a gut feeling, right? Like there's always that part of us that's speaking underneath the noise. And that's something that I think is important to know. It doesn't even require that you're able to visualize. So, how you were mentioning, you were able to see something. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, well, I can't visualize, or hypnosis doesn't work on me. But anytime I hear those things, there are always workarounds or reasons why those people didn't have the experiences that they were hoping for.
I know that I didn't want to get too in my head as to what the experience was to tell myself, maybe this is a little too out there. And I just said, something's breaking. And I have tried so many different avenues, and I'm a big fan of regular therapy as well. I have done it on and off all of my life, but it's not something I'm actively in right now. My therapy has become my yoga sessions, my breath work, my daily mindset shift, the gratitude. And the biggest thing that I think that session did was taking me back, of course, to a past life, which, was very interesting and seemed to uncover some things, but it was reminders of moments in time, especially my childhood, where life was carefree before we all got bogged down with and let's just be honest, the financial aspect of the world today. We're all working so hard just to get by, just to try to put a little savings together to have that vacation happen for the family. You add in technology and the social world, And it is a true rat race. And we're not, you say this all the time, that's not how we were meant to live on
No.
this planet.
Right.
We were meant to take time for ourselves and slow down.
We've been taught to push, to be successful, to make the money, to do the next thing. We were never taught to be present and to listen to our soul. And that's a whole rabbit hole we could go down, why that is that we're living in this time like that. But that part of you is always there. And so to have a guide, whether it's myself or someone else, to guide you through that, to get to that place where you can hear the higher self, the intuition speak, is really potent, as you've shared.
Yeah.
Really creates incredible life-changing experiences.
After I removed the alcohol, I had moments where it got better, it got worse. But then as time went on, because, right, we take off the Band-Aid and then we start getting to the root of the sources of pain. And we might not always know what they are.
Right.
And they might be as, I don't want to say simple, but sometimes as remembering that moment, back in childhood where I think about that. I was my daughter's age then, 8 years old, realizing the fragility of my parents' marriage in that moment and being the only child that was privy to it and feeling from that moment on like I had to
The
fix
weight,
everything.
the responsibility,
And how that translates to an adult, and that maybe that's where those tendencies came from of having to do everything all of the time. And so it was really just that awareness. And to your point, where is this coming from? And now that I know, how can I wind it into my day-to-day life? Because it doesn't just go away. It's just something that we now realize, okay, we have a tool in our toolbox. And to this day, I start to go back into that space where my brain, the volume, I can feel it like someone's turning it up. And I have the power now to say, I know how to pause it.
It just starts with watching your thoughts. Like, what kind of thoughts am I having? And do these thoughts feel good? Are these thoughts creating joy and peace and ease, or are these thoughts making me feel stressed and anxious? And it's usually the latter, only because it's a bad habit and it's a survival instinct. It's not you've done something wrong, or
Sure.
you're a failure, or you're just a messed up person. No, it's how the mind works. It's meant to keep you safe.
I remember in that past life imagery, I certainly felt like I was shaking. I was having an
Yeah.
experience where I was trembling. I remember calling out to you, and you, throughout this whole experience, what was so beautiful about it was you weren't trying to fix me or solve anything. You were just holding the space. You were truly just guiding me. There was no suggestion of anything other than, is there another door that it can lead you to? Is it telling you something? But other than that, there was no fixing or interpreting on your end. So when past life imagery does come up to people, how do you frame that?
That it's soul language, if that resonates for people. I've certainly had people tell me that belief in past lives is against their religion. So that's not something I, try to prove or disprove. I think we're all here on earth to have our own experiences and our own beliefs, and they're all correct unless you're believing something that harms others. So if people do have past life imagery and things come through, and not everybody does, a lot of times people only go back to childhood in this life because, like they have experienced something that's still with them, that has still created some kind of programming or response. But if they do, then it's usually very felt, which you can speak to as well. Usually, if people go into these past lives, they really feel something in their body. Tears sometimes come, and not because they're experiencing something bad. So not everyone is going back and reliving traumatic experiences. It's just really, why did you choose the session? But yeah, I just frame it of like, this is your soul speaking. This is your higher self. That's that part of you that's like connected to your heart, not the part of you that's doing the monkey mind racing thoughts. Like, we just know those aren't truths, right? Those are just kind of bad habits. So I just kind of frame that as soul language, soul speaking.
I can relate to the monkey mind in
Can't we all? I'm working on it.
in a big way. Yeah, I mean, it was really incredible, and I do know that there is so much heaviness underneath everybody right now.
Yeah,
So if we don't take the time to go inward and to get quiet and to intentionally still our brains, it's kind of impossible to not feel like we're going a little crazy.
I agree. Yeah. And I just want to bring in the movement piece too. And we talked about this last time. We're not here saying, oh, you need to do yoga, but it's really about movement. Like you need to move your body. It could just be walking for 20 or 30 minutes briskly. And also the disconnection most people have from the actual ground.
Mm.
There's like whole documentaries that are hours long on that. And because we've talked about the breath and we've talked about the mind, but ultimately these things aren't really enough. Again, it's a full pie, but it does not have to take your entire day. You don't have to go carve out an hour for yoga, but we really have to dive into what are called self care practices and movement, connection to the earth, breath. These are to me like three pillars, not to mention then what are you putting into your body, with food. And then it's just finding that balance. It usually is when we're in our 40s that we start to discover, oh, I can't continue to hustle. My nervous system is no longer able to keep up with that.
Something that we have been ingrained in our brains as well for so long is the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And I have been reframing that. It's a midlife awakening.
I love that.
I feel like that is 100% what it is. We're not
Mhm.
having a crisis of going, oh my God, I want to look and be 20 years old. You couldn't pay me to go back to 20. I mean, swear to God, you could not pay me to go back to 20 years old. It's an awakening of, oh my goodness, I don't want to say how much time I've wasted or bullshit that has
Yeah.
happened, but it's like, okay, been there, done that, and I don't want any more of it. No more bullshit.
Right.
No more shallow conversations. No more half-ass work on myself or, not full clarity or conviction in my choices. So to me, it feels more like an awakening than
Yes.
a crisis.
Beautifully put. And that just circles back to we are living in a time where we have been cut off from our soul. Like that is just ingrained in our society right now, not to be connected to that part of us that wants deep connection. I think beneath everything, we just want to be deeply loved,
Yeah.
right? And just to have those relationships and not just with our partner only and our children, but we want community. We need community. And we have to choose that.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I have heard about for so long that I've finally really truly started ingraining in my day to day are the affirmations. And I've talked about this before, whether it's in the bedroom and telling myself I deserve pleasure, you're not going to let your mind wander, or just at home. Yesterday, the kids ended up staying at their dad's house. They were supposed to come back. They stayed an extra night, so I had some free time on my hands, and I decided to just let myself indulge. I didn't want to do anything. I had a pile of laundry. I had so many things on the to-do list, as we always do. And instead, I was so freaking lazy. And so I went in that spiral where I was like, you can't be lazy. You can't do. And then all of a sudden, I redirected it and I out loud gave myself permission. Kirby, you are allowed to slow down. Kirby, you are allowed to be lazy today, which what a silly word to begin with. I mean, rest is one of the most important things we can do, but somewhere along the way it got framed as laziness on a day off. And I think giving ourselves that out loud permission it's been so helpful for me because I've literally had those conversations that I talked about that were seldom occupants, those quiet conversations. It was always intense and obsessive and aggressive and pointing a finger at myself. Like, why? Why are we always pointing the finger at ourselves?
It's our culture. It's just work, succeed, strive, try. And these are actually beautiful qualities, but you really sparked something with the lazy word because in actuality, lazy is never a thing. Even like teenagers who are just spending hours in bed, I think they're calling it bed rotting these days, but there's a reason for that. And it has to do with the nervous system. So, in my opinion, no one is lazy ever. Like, clearly, you are not a lazy person ever in your life with all that you do. But, like, that again is just an example of that word doesn't even need to be in our vocabulary
Yeah,
at all.
agreed.
If you are laying around not doing something, there's something going on. You're incapacitated. There's something going on. Anxiousness, depression, something that's preventing you from moving.
It is really interesting the way that the universe sometimes, I'm a big believer in it now, shows up when we need it. You were asking me this morning in yoga if my arm was still hurting. I had woken up with some severe nerve pain the other day. And I am very intense about making sure that I get to my 4 yoga classes a week. They are my therapy. They make all of the difference in my day. Well, this was a pain that there was no question. I could not come to class. So I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'm going to ask Britt, can he take the kids to school this morning? I decided I was going to cancel my 2 morning meetings, so I did not have to leave the house until 1:30. Well, I slept until 11:30 that morning.
Mm.
I do not leave the house past, 7 maybe, the latest, most every single day of the week. And now my arm is pretty much feeling better. So it was this random, weird pain. And that was my body telling me that I needed to slow the fuck down.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible to me because I just thought, wow, I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know why this is happening. I'll be glad if it just goes away without explanation, but maybe it was just simply a little nudge that I needed to back off for a second.
Yeah. I think we're chronically dysregulated and chronically fatigued for the most part. And those are great times to give yourself that permission. I just love how you use the affirmations to tell yourself. I mean, sometimes that's what we need to
Yeah.
do because it's just a program like, oh, I need to.
Mhm.
And especially when we're mothers or parents, providing for our children or our families, like you can't just like not do the
Right.
work, right? And so I love that you took that space and like gave yourself that permission.
I found if I'm being really honest, I come on here every week. I never pretend to have it all figured out, but I, have been trying to take more of my own advice. If I'm not intentionally working on it, I can go right back into that place in 2 seconds. It is so easy for the monkey mind
Yep.
to flip back up. So having these conversations with myself, looking in the mirror, you are allowed, you are okay. You are safe. This is what you need. You are not going to feel guilty. I probably seem like a total lunatic if somebody was
No.
walking on me, but it is working. So if they're a little more curious about QHHT, wondering, if they did a session, is there anything you'd want somebody to know?
Yeah, I would like to say that I don't really ever have anybody tell me that they weren't a little nervous or unsure. So I think that's something to note. You can always ask questions. I'm happy to talk to anybody about it, whether you decide to or not. And then something else is I do psychic readings as well. And I do something called Akashic Records
Mhm.
readings. And I do love to do a reading for people first because there are times when it's not appropriate for someone. And that's if you've just been in a major traumatic incident, you have to be able to be calm, to lay down, to breathe, to do the things. So, it's not always immediately appropriate for everyone.
What's something you wish people understood about healing that doesn't involve fixing themselves? What's a little antidote?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. Even when I say quantum healing hypnosis technique, I love to say quantum hypnosis because I struggle with the word healing because it indicates in how we've been taught that something is wrong with you. And I come from the perspective that nothing is ever wrong with you. You're having this human experience to literally evolve as a human, to evolve if you believe in the soul, the experience of the soul. And so, maybe well over like 15 years ago, when I was really struggling, having constant panic attacks and and really having difficulty in my own life, I heard the quote, "Nothing is happening to you, everything is happening for you." And that can be really hard, especially if you've had a super serious trauma or, there are horrible things that can happen in the human experience in life. And so that can be a really hard quote to really open up to. But I have found, like, I lost everything in Hurricane Irma. I lost my home. I lost my business. I had to use all of my savings as a single mother to stay afloat. I started bouncing in and out of debt. It affected my life to this day. But instead of going into victim consciousness, I said, how is this happening for me? And I continued to ask that question through that experience. And I found beauty and love and community, and my work path took different avenues that wouldn't have been open if I still had had that business that was kind of holding me there. So, long answer, but I just like to say that we're already whole, and healing is really about uncovering who you are beneath the noise, who you are beneath the grief, beneath whatever has happened to you that you're struggling with. And it's just who are you truly? And let's discover that so that you can live as your happiest, fullest, most embodied self, because it's available to everyone. If you have food, shelter, and water, if you're not actively living where bombs are going off over your head, we all have this ability to step out of the matrix, if you want to call it that, and live this life of ultimate joy, love, and sovereignty.
So there's something that you said to Britt and I in yoga the other day,
Yeah.
and it was about back in ancient times when people
Mhm.
would go to a healer, if you
Mhm.
will, when they were not feeling good, and what
Yeah.
they would say.
I love this. It's a quote by Gabrielle Roth, and it says, in many shamanic societies, if you would go to the medicine person and you would complain of being disheartened, dispirited, depressed, they'd ask you these four questions. When did you stop singing? When did you stop dancing? When did you stop being enchanted by stories? And when did you stop relishing in the sweet territory of silence?
Absolutely love this woman. You can find her Evolve Key West, Full Circle Yoga School. Highly recommend checking her out. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for being on again today. If this resonated with you or you think it might resonate with a friend, please like, subscribe, and share. If you're out on the YouTube world, you can hit that bell button so you never miss an episode. Wherever you're listening from, we appreciate you being here. And remember, be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, and above all, breathe. Thanks for listening to Behind the Blonde.